Hello.
All right, good day, good day.
Hi. Very nice to talk to you.
And you as well. What would you like to discuss this day?
I wanted to ask you if you have transgender people on your planet.
It has happened from time to time, though it is not necessarily a theme we completely need to explore. Although, as we evolve, in a sense, we become less differentiated in male and female and closer to spirit, which contains no gender and all genders at all. So, in that sense, you may say that many of us are now what you might refer to as androgynous, neither male nor female exactly, but not exactly the same expression of transgender that you are exploring on Earth.
Okay, that's amazing. That's great news for me.
All
I
right.
wanted to ask you if okay, so my name is Linnea
Yes.
and it's a plant name
Yes.
and it is considered a pretty feminine name. I am in the process of transitioning, but I really like my name. It's a
Yes.
because it's a plant name and I work with plants and I know Willa Hillerkissing talks about having plant names in the future and that really resonates with me.
Yes.
So I was wondering if there is a name that comes through you to me that would make sense for me after I transition medically.
Into,
A male.
well, if you wish to retain traditional suffixes on your planet, you could call yourself Linneo.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't think about that. That's amazing. Okay. Whoa, that's really interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have another question.
Yes.
I'm my ancestors are from Lebanon.
Yes.
Can I ask a question about Lebanon?
You may ask. We do not know yet whether we will be allowed to answer, but go ahead.
Okay, great. So I have ancestry from that area. That's kind of the only area that I have ancestry from. And when I look at Lebanon, it seems like a place that experiences a lot of challenges and a lot of identity crisis issues. And I'm
Yes.
wondering, it's kind of hard for me to find information on Lebanon. And I'm wondering if you have any idea of the original people of Lebanon and if they ever lived harmoniously with the land and if they ever lived harmoniously with each other.
In some ways, yes, but it is an area, as you say, of great challenge and great cycles of exploration. We would suggest, even though it may not be only connected to the idea of Lebanon, if you have not done so already, explore the idea of Baalbek
Okay.
and see what comes up for you.
Explore and you mean just research and
Research.
not go there.
Yes, if you wish. You may ultimately go there, but for now, research is fine. Baalbek.
Okay. Okay, great. What are can you talk a little bit about is there any energy point in Lebanon that makes it so chaotic or is it just what people there have agreed to experience?
To some degree, it's what they have agreed to experience, but it is a deeper story than that and a longer story than we have time to express today.
Well, will we get to know sometime in my lifetime what the story there is? It just seems too complex.
Potentially, potentially, yes.
You have talked about how on first contact we would get a complete history of our planet.
That will
Would
be
that be a
contained
time?
within it, yes.
Amazing. Do I have time for one more question?
Well, that was a question. I guess you did.
Okay. Um, I have a question you've probably answered a whole bunch of times already, but what
Always
are
the
some
first time, every time.
okay, interesting. What are some actual practices on how to stop caring about what people think? Because just identifying it to me doesn't stop those reoccurring patterns and those reoccurring thoughts. It's something I've been working on my whole life. So
All
I'm
right.
wondering, yeah,
Well, this goes down once again to the motivational mechanism we have talked about. The idea that you believe these things to be truer than the alternative, yourself. So the question is, since you only believe things you believe serve you, the alternative must be scarier or believed to be worse than what you're already willing to believe about yourself to be true. So when people say things and you care about what they're saying in the negative sense, there is a portion of you in your belief system that agrees with them. or is afraid that it might be true. You need to get in touch with how it serves you to hold on to that assessment of yourself, why you would align yourself with something that you don't prefer to be true about yourself, and examine why you're holding on to it. Usually it has to do with issues of lack of self-worth, or the idea that the alternative belief, the one that you know would be more positive, is somehow something you believe would actually cause something worse to happen than simply staying where you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll have to process that. But the first part really, really struck a chord with me.
All right. The motivational mechanism is simply that within your consciousness where you will always move toward what you believe serves you and always move away from what you believe does not. So if you notice that you're holding on to things that don't serve you, like maybe caring too much about what people think of you, not saying you can't take advice from time to time, that's fine, but you get to determine what is true for you. But holding on to things you know are not necessarily preferable and judging yourself in that sense, you have to find out why you would think that that is to your benefit.
Okay.
Because the idea, again, is that if you believe it is to your benefit to hold on to that concept, that usually means, again, it's an issue of self-worth, or it's an issue that the alternative somehow, because of your belief system, would appear worse, that something bad will happen if you go the other way that you prefer to go.
Right.
So examine those two probabilities, and you will hit upon what the belief is. And as soon as you really look around and compare yourself to others in the world who may be living in the way you prefer to, you will realize that you actually do have a choice, and that to hold on to something you don't prefer makes no sense. And as soon as it truly makes no sense, it'll be gone, because you don't hold on to things that don't make sense. So you have a belief that's making the idea make sense. You have to find that belief and let it go.
That's great. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
One more question about, there's a lot of predictions that 2023 will be a year of famine, which doesn't sound right to me.
For some, it's true.
For some, it's true?
Yes, but not for all.
Mhm.
Again, this is the splitting prism when you are starting to diversify into different threads, different realities, different versions of Earth. So for some, but again, remember, there's no such thing as a prediction of the future. The energy that is created in the prediction is the sensing of what's in the present that has a high degree of probability, unless hearing the prediction makes you change it.
How likely is it to switch to change that probability for myself?
As likely as you believe it to be. So again, examine your beliefs. Why wouldn't it be likely? Why wouldn't it be probable for you to go in a different direction?
Right.
Remember,
So it comes down to that
fear attracts.
Yeah.
So ask yourself, why are you concerned about this? What are your belief systems telling you that you would bring this up as a question?
Yeah.
How much stock are you putting in that idea? And why? And you will have your answer.
I don't fear it for myself. I fear it for other people.
Yes, but they have their own path too.
Yeah. Okay.
So while you can do whatever you can to help,
Yeah.
and perhaps stave off the idea of starvation or famine for others,
Yeah.
all you can do is do what you can. People have their own paths. You're not living their lives. They may have chosen this for their own reasons.
That's true.
And what you have to share with them and how you can help may affect them somewhere down the line if it doesn't do so right away. But that's all you can do. What they choose to do with what you choose to help them with is none of your business.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
Be helpful, but be respectful of their own path as well if you seem like you're not able to really do something for them. They're making their own choices too.
Thank you. You've answered all of my questions. I appreciate that.
It is our deep appreciation to you for the interaction. Aveo.
Aveo.
Hello, Bashar. This is Meerte from the Netherlands, and I have some experiences I would like to ask you about. So, somewhere in my 20s, I was sitting on the couch. I was watching our cat jumping through the living room, And all of a sudden, I felt like I caught a glimpse of his perspective. So I was closer to the floor, I was facing in a different direction. But especially the air around me, like usually I just ignore space and look at the objects in it. But now it was like the air was very active and like sparkly and very alive. Like a few years later, I was babysitting a little kid, and I was sitting at the table, and she was standing to my right. And all of a sudden, I could see the table on eye level, and I saw my own figure to the left. And especially my senses were very active, like less focus on my thoughts and more on my senses. And then a few years later, again, I was helping a friend who was making a YouTube video. So I was filming her and holding the camera and listening to her story. And then all of a sudden I could see myself holding the camera in front of me. So it felt like switching places, but more than switching places, it was like their perspective was added to mine for a while. Just for a few seconds, because I would be very surprised. And I think the surprise in itself just kind of like moved me back to my own perspective. But I was wondering, can you tell me a little bit about what happens in a situation like that? How would you describe something like that? And also, how could we, what could we do to actively develop a skill like that to maybe purposefully switch places or add perspectives for a moment? Thank you so much.
Well, there are many ways that you might learn to do that more intentionally, but for right now, they are simply signposts for you to get used to the idea that you are loosely connected to physical reality, and thus slipping back into the idea of your spirit perspective, which sees all things as connected, which sees all perspectives from every point of view. So you're kind of practicing going back and forth between the denser physical material world and the less dense spiritual perspective of knowing that you are everything, you are connected to everything, and can perceive everything from everyone else's perspective. So you're practicing back and forth doing that so that you maintain more conscious awareness of your connection to physical reality and know that you are creating it as a projection, as a dream projection of your consciousness. So it's just a process you're going through that you'll get better at. Just keep going, follow the formula. It will expand and it will accelerate.
And will one of the markers that we're ready for open contact be that we don't care that much if it happens or not, because we're enjoying our lives so much as they are and living in a state of high passion and excitement?
Generally speaking, yes, because it's not about the idea of us bringing you what you prefer. It's about the idea of you choosing to live in the moment and follow your passion and create the reality you prefer as an experience, which will then make you more vibrationally compatible with having open contact with beings that are of a similar frequency. So yes, it's not about the idea of us rescuing you or saving you. It's about you bringing yourself to a safe level, a same level, a sincere, honest, understandable level of appreciation, gratitude, and living your life fully in joy that will actually do the trick and make you more accessible to those beings, such as our civilization, who then can find you more easily because you are more vibrationally compatible with us.
So I guess the idea that the more that we bring heaven to earth,
yes,
the more a side effect will be that we have contact with higher dimensional beings and ETs.
The more you create heaven on earth, the more you can interact with all the denizens of heaven.
It's wonderful.
Yes, it is.
Is the moon hollow and used as a base for the Galactic Federation to discuss Earth topics?
There are bases on your moon from different ET civilizations. The moon is not hollow per se in the way that you think of that. But there are large caverns, there are large areas of underground bases on the moon.
Are there bases on the dark side of the moon?
The opposite side of the moon that faces you is not always dark. Yes, there are bases on that side, but it's a misunderstanding to say that it's always dark. It's only dark in the sense that you can't see it from Earth because only one side of your moon is always facing your planet because it is in gravitational lock.
When they went to the moon, did they become aware of any of those bases?
They became aware of the presence of extraterrestrials on the moon, yes.
So our returning to the moon, how does
Yes.
that fit in?
It fits in wonderfully.
It's the perfect timing, huh?
Yes, it is. Now, it could have happened sooner, but again, you had some things to work through. So for what it is and the process you're going through, it is perfect timing.
And the fact that we have telescopes now that are incredibly clear and able to penetrate such deep levels of space is reflective of the idea that we are getting more and more ready to experience what's available.
Yes, because as we said before, it is your own telescopes and your probes that will discover the idea that life does exist elsewhere. And even if it's simple life, the idea will open you up psychologically to accept the fact that life exists elsewhere and that you're not alone. And that will make a major difference in your collective consciousness.
And back to the idea of contact, when people reach that higher state of being in excess of 200,000 cycles per second, and they're ready for open contact, how might that happen if they live in an urban environment versus being in a remote place?
There have been many contacts that have happened in urban environments. Just because they're in an urban environment doesn't mean that they can't be private.
So similar to what happened with the channel, where his family members that were present with him in the vehicle were able to see your ship, but no one else could.
Some others did, but most did not. So yes, it can happen that way. Or again, remember, beings can simply appear inside of your house or your apartment. No one outside has to know what's going on inside.
If the gift of open contact is all of our true history, and we get to decide how we want to relate to that, then are we not currently living the result of what we call our true history?
You are currently living the result of the past you are creating now. So when we say that you're going to be given the gift of your true history, we're talking about a level of existence where you'll be creating the history that is necessary for you to receive in that version of Earth.
When you mentioned before that there are other parallel Earths that you're interacting with,
Yes.
can you tell us about one of them that would be a lot different from ours?
One is primarily based on the idea of experimenting with shifting borders. In other words, on a semi-annual cycle, the idea of so-called borders is really just a notion of experimenting with different social structures for a period of time and then dissolving those borders and shifting again to different forms of experimentation of social structures. That is one of the versions of Earth that we are interacting with.
And as far as the idea of location of an atom,
Yes.
this person's saying they're confused regarding the principle of location being an aspect of an object in space-time.
Yes.
Where is the demarcation of an atom's location point stored? And is it in the electron cloud, the nucleus? And also, how do you keep an atom still in order to assess its location between 2 points?
We don't have to keep it still. It doesn't operate that precisely. We operate within the idea of the quantum uncertainty, and that's sufficient enough. We allow physical reality on a quantum level to exist as it does. The vibrations are so minute, they do not prevent us from simply creating a matrix of locations based on a 0 point that we start with, which is a particular point on our planet. So the idea is that we simply extrapolate out of that what the likely locational variables would be from that point forward, stretching out into space-time.
Okay, and a long time ago, you gave us what are called the sacred circuits.
Yes.
And one person is asking if you could tell us exactly how the sacred circuitry affects our brain just by watching them, and
Well,
what the
again,
mechanism that's taking place.
Yes, again, it is a permission slip like anything, and those that are willing to allow themselves to shift their neurology into ways that are more vibrationally compatible with extending their senses into other dimensions will gravitate to the sacred circuits as a representation of the kind of shifts they already wish to make. The sacred circuits simply provide an idea or a template for them to align with that would allow the circuitry in their brain to shift in the way that they say they prefer it to. So again, remember, sacred circuits don't cause anything. They are a reflection, like anything in physical reality, of a idea you already have in your consciousness, but don't necessarily know what particular permission slip to utilize in order to accomplish that. The permission slip of the sacred circuits allows for more ease in understanding, oh, these are going to allow me to change the circuitry in my brain more easily because they represent that idea.
Okay, and this person is saying that they recently discovered moldavite, and it's the only crystal that they've seen have such a dramatic effect on people, both physically and mentally. Is there anything you can tell us about moldavite that would help us understand that?
It strongly represents the idea of increasing possibility and probability of open contact because moldavite has come through space. So it carries the vibration of extraterrestrial frequencies with it. And thus, in recognizing that, those that are primarily oriented to the concept of extraterrestrial contact will feel as a permission slip an especially strong pull to that particular mineral because it represents that idea of connection to space. All right?
Okay. And how would you recommend that we think of the Anunnaki, since there was a renegade group of them that helped to create us? And what would be an appropriate way to relate to them? Should we be grateful for them? What?
The way to relate to this idea is to save it for another time.
Oh, that question.
Yes, and that will be enough for today.
All righty. Well, thank you so much. You know, we all really appreciate these interactions and all the information you share and being able to spend some time with you. So thank you so much.
It is our passion and our pleasure. And now please prepare yourselves for the meditation that goes along with the window, the door, and the gate to increase the probability of open contact for those that choose to align with the frequency. Enjoy.